Hi, Watch. Hi, Deepika.
Hey, Shobhan, hi everyone.
So people are joining. So let's wait for 2 more minutes. Hello, Debasis. Good evening. Hello, Lovish.
Hi, good evening.
Hello, very good evening. Hello, Shreyan Kumar. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah. So people who joined now, can you turn on your video? So we eagerly want to see your faces. Thank you, Dinesh. Hi, Deepika.
So turning on the video will help us to have a more interactive session as well. So that's the reason we are encouraging to turning on the video.
Hello, Abinandhan. Good evening. Hello, Subhajyoti. Hello, Sushant.
Hey.
Hi.
So we can give 1 more minute. We see still people are joining, and we probably start 5:03. Yeah. So once again, who joined now? Good evening, everyone. And yeah, so let's start our event. So first of all, I would like to thank you everyone who interested to learn new things and who bearing their weekends and they are joining. Right, it's very really appreciate spending your time to learn something new in during the weekends. Right? Yeah. So again, thanks everyone who joined our vodka event on 14th edition of Coimbatore. And today we hope we will be giving enough knowledge to you regarding the new tech stack and what are the QA practices that you can follow in your project, everything, right? Yeah. So let's start without any further delay. For giving a welcome note, so we have a Ravi Prasad, so who is quality assurance team in ThoughtWorks, who is really passionate about the new technologies and community. So participating in the community and contributing the community. So he is very passionate about on that. Yeah. So over to you, Ravi, for a welcome note.
Thanks, Shobhan. maybe people do not know your name now, so they all know me. So
Yeah.
maybe I
That's
let
great.
you and Kaushik introduce yourself first because you
Super,
are
super.
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. So sorry, everyone. So this is Shoban. I'm a quality analyst in ThoughtWorks. So I have been working ThoughtWorks with 2 years, total of 8 years experience. And today I am the host for this event. So today I have a co-host who is Kaushik with me, who helping me to hosting this event. Yeah, Kaushik, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Shovan. And it is well said. Hello, folks. I'm Kaushik. I'm here a quality analyst. Okay, so I'm playing the role of QA here in ThoughtWorks for almost a year. And that's pretty much from my side. Over to you, Ravi.
Yeah, thanks, folks. So Shoban had welcomed you enough so that that he has taken half of my job. So again, hello, folks. I'm Ravi Prashant. Been with ThoughtWorks for close to 3 years now. So this vodka 14th edition, right? It's a special edition we would call, because you can see post-pandemic, this is the first vodka event that we are conducting as a hybrid one. So you can see people are there in office, and and we are there in Zoom. So this is a hybrid model that we are trying out for the first time. Uh, Previously, we kind of do a live telecast or live relay in YouTube or other places, but post pandemic, this is our first event. So and we know that it's been a Friday evening, and it would have been a long week, long day, and thanks all of you for taking your time and coming here, joining us on this Friday Eve. And this vodka, how many of you are new to vodka? Maybe can you raise your hand or come on video and show a thumbs up so that we'll know how many new participants or new faces that we are seeing. Okay, okay, okay. Even thought workers are new here. Cool. So for you people, initially when you'd have heard vodka, right? And on Friday evening, it would be a little intimidating, I know. So, but this vodka is value-oriented discussion on quality analysis. So the main motto that we have for this event is come and learn something new. So definitely, we would the main aim of this particular event is kind of to ensure that we kind of deliver the latest trends in market, and that too in the QA spaces, and make you involve the practices that we are doing, something of that sort. And even in certain vodkas, we do the hiring, I mean, API workshops or the hands-on workshops as well. So these are all the things that we do as part of this event. And this is an platform where not only thought workers can present, we even invite even you people, any of you can come and present in this vodka event. So it's open for all of us. So any of you are interested, and those who are new here, if you have an interesting topic, there is a floor open. You can always register it, and we'll evaluate the presentation, and then you can very well present it in the vodka event. So that's always welcome. And similar to vodka, ThoughtWorks is conducting Geek Nights, which is a dev-oriented event. But again, there, if some topics interest you, we can always enroll and we can attend Geek Nights. And even there is Converge. So Converge is for a BA specific event. So if we kind of, again, something interests us even in those spaces, we can go and attend there. So I don't want to take much of your time and bore you people. I think most of you wanted the tech stuff now. So again, we hope that we'll make justice to your time and not waste your Friday evening. So again, I welcome you all, and have an awesome weekend and Friday. Yeah, over to you, Shobhan.
Yeah. Thank you, Ravi. Thanks. Such a warm welcome to welcoming everyone. So just taking a few minutes so what the agenda is today, and hope everyone got an email and everyone go through the meetup page and everything, right? So if you want to follow up our forum, we have a ThoughtWorks Coimbatore vodka page that we'll be sharing the link in the chat. Maybe you can visit and revisit whatever the topics we've done so far, and also you can watch the space more for the upcoming informations. Yeah. So yeah, without further delay, we'll move on the first topic, which is automation for XR Hub, right? So we have here Jayachandran, who is a quality analyst, more than 9 years of experience, and in ThoughtWorks, more than 3+ years experience. And along with JC, we have Deepika, and who is a quality analyst for ThoughtWorks, and she is a grad consultant. And they will help us to understand what is the XR application. So now world, everything is moving to XR application, right? So everyone mind, we have something, right, how to automate XR application. So they are helping us to understand what is the XR application, how we'll be automating. So those stuffs, yeah. Yeah, JC, yeah. Sure. Over to you, JC and Deepika.
Thanks, Shobhan. Let me share my screen. Shobhan, can you stop sharing the screen so that I can share? Or you will be sharing from there? Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Hope my screen is visible. Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. So today myself and JC are here to talk about automation for AR apps. So the objective of this session is to giving an intro of how to get started with XR apps automation. So let's get started. So before getting directly into the session, right, I just want to have like a small questionnaire. So please be active on chat. I will be monitoring chat. So let's get started with the first question. So name a tool which comes to your mind when you think of Android app automation. So let's have 10 seconds for sake of time.
Appium.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm hearing Appium. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So considering the time, I'll move on. So yeah, mostly Appium is widely used. And for this session, let's have Appium as our reference. Okay, we will be comparing it throughout the session. So now, if we are using Appium, then how Appium will find a particular button or an input field in a 2D app, 2D Android app? So basically what Appium uses to find it. Any guesses? Yeah, commencing was right. So basically Appium needs locator, right? It will use XPath or CSS or ID. So any of the locators, it needs to locate an element. Then moving on to the next question. So we are using this word called XR app, XR app. So anyone have an idea of what is an XR app? Let's wait for another 10 more seconds. Okay. Yeah. So we're on the guesses are almost right. 3D app. So basically XR is an umbrella term which will cover all this AR apps, VR apps, and MR apps. And we can say in simple form, it's a basic 3D app. Okay, then, so it's a 3D Android app, right? Then we know Appium. Then why can't we use Appium to automate these apps? Any idea? Any guesses? Yeah, mostly correct, Suresh Kumar. Maybe let's move on. So why not Appium, right? So let's see this image. So basically right hand side, we have a 3D app, Android app called TrashBus, which we will be using throughout this session. If you see, we are trying to locate this element using Appium inspector, but it's not able to find any of the elements because even though it's an Android app, the 3D Android apps are built using, sorry, it doesn't have any native Android elements. So if in 3D app, everything we will be calling it as game object. So Appium can't find those elements because Appium is designed in a way it will find only the native Android elements. So that's why we can't use Appium. Then what is the tool today we are going to talk about, right? It's called Alternate Tester. Basically, Alternate Tester is nothing but an UI automation tool for 3D Android apps. So we can automate all the functionalities of Android UI, right? Those type of automation we can do with this Alt-Unity tester. Then let's see how it works. Okay, so basically Alt-Unity tester works based on a client server model. So, in the monitor where we use to write code, right? We will use this Alt-Unity driver to write the code, which will act as our Alt-Unity client. And we need to have our Alt-Unity server along with the app we want to test in the device we need to test. What this server will do, right? It will open the port for the socket connection so that the driver can communicate with the gap. So that we can interact and find the Unity objects. Then using this Alt-Unity tester, we can simulate all type of Android inputs like key press, click, tap, whatever things we do using Appium, right? We can simulate same simulations using Alt-Unity tester as well. Okay. Then we discussed like we can't how to look. We can't locate 2D app. Sorry, 3D apps elements in using Appium, right? Then how to find it? Then so Alt-Unity tester gives a tool called Alt-Unity inspector, which will be same like our Appium inspector. So when you try to locate an element, right, it will give the particular. Sorry, we will use the term called game object. So game object is nothing but a equivalent of element in 2D. So every element here, right, we will call it as a game object. So if you select this run button, it will give that locator here. But one drawback of this Alt-Unity inspector, right, it is available only for premium users. So, and it's available free as a free trial only for 7 days. So if you are new to this tool and you just want to give it a try, right, there is one more way, which is to use our source code. So let me show you a snapshot of our Unity editor. So basically the game we are talking about, it's built on a Unity editor. And this is a snap of how the Unity editor will look like. So we will be showing it more in the demo. So let's say I want to locate this element here. Imagine this as a cat. Okay. Then so to locate this cat, right? So this cat mesh locates this cat. But how to make Alt-Unity tester understand, right? This is the one we are looking. We need to give it from the hierarchy. So this is the complete hierarchy. So we need to give from UI camera, then this loading character pose, then character clone, cat mesh. So like that, we need to build the complete path using the source code. Okay. Let's move on to demo. I think I will stop here and I'll ask JC to share his screen and show us the demo of how it works. Over to you, JC.
Okay. Let me. People, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. People, let's take 2 minutes. Whoever has Android phone, right? Can you quickly get into your Play Store and download a game called Trash Dash? Let's play some games here in the demo. Okay. And let's understand how we are trying to automate the game. Okay, so I will quickly share my phone screen, which is my personal phone. Can everybody open Play Store? Google Play Store and search for Trash Dash. And you download the first game, the Endless Runner Trash Dash game. Sorry. So let me know once it is done. Let's take quick 2 minutes to complete this. Or raise your hands once you're done. Hello. Everybody doing that, right?
Yeah, it's installing.
Okay. Okay, start the game and see what is there in the game. It is just a very basic game. It's kind of a temple run game. The cat is running on the lane and it is collecting some fish bones. For iOS, there is no options now. Everything is prepared for Android and Unity things. Okay, let me also quickly run the game. Okay, are you everybody seeing my phone right on the screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Into the game and let me run the game. So this is the game. Once after I start the game, right, there is a countdown, right? And the cat started running, and the cat is collecting the fish bones. And let me run the game now. Okay. And I lost my first life. And I am purposefully losing my second life as well to complete the demo. Okay. The third life is also done. If you see, after I lost all my life, the life indication of these three hearts, right? This turned black. Previously, it was actually red. Now, after I lost all my life, it became black and the game is over. So this is the flow. After the game is over, right? We have this pop-up and you click on game over and we have a different pop-up here. So there is a leaderboard, main menu, run, and again I run. So if I run again there is a countdown. Okay, sorry. Okay, again there is a countdown, and when the countdown was there, I paused the game. So when I paused the game, right, there is a different menu, which is resume and main menu. If I resume the game, again the game is going on, right? So this is one of the flow, the user flow, that whenever the user plays this game, right, these are some of the user flows that the user get in. So we didn't automate the game as such because this takes much time to automate the entire game itself. So we are just throwing you ideas to how we are collecting the game objects, and we are how can we automate the user flow for this game. So this is the idea for this demo. Okay, so let me go on to the Unity editor and see how we can use all Unity desktop. So the game I showed you, right, that is built on top of Unity game engine. So whatever the screen that you are seeing at right now, right, that is the Unity application, which is a game engine. And this game, whatever I showed you, right, that is developed on top of this Unity Unity game engine. So this game is developed on Unity and it is built for Android and it is uploaded in the Play Store, and from there you are getting it downloaded. So whenever we develop a game, right, this game was developed by somebody and it is there in the Play Store and we downloaded it and we are playing it. So when we are developing a game, right, so we can build it for our Android application. Let me build this from Unity. So this is the normal way that an Unity application will get built. Okay, so it can be a game, it can be an enterprise application, it can be an end user application, it can be whatever. If something is built on top of Unity game engine, the normal build way for doing normally building an application for Android this is the way for building an application in Android for the Unity application. So if I say build, it will ask me for a location to save the APK. So if I save this ultracat.apk, it will build an APK and put the APK in this location. If you see here, right, I have already created an APK and put it here. So this is the APK that has been generated out of this out of this Unity build. Okay, so you understood how the Unity is building an APK for a game, right? So this is how the Unity builds an APK. So let's understand the game now. For example, this is one of the UI in the game. So before starting the game, before running the game, this was the page that you are seeing on the phone. So in Unity terms, in 3D terms, right, we call it as a scene. So the name of this scene is a main scene. Okay, so at the top you see an hierarchy, right? This is a main scene. So let's do one thing. Let's try to identify an object of a game here. When I say identifying an object of a game, how we identify an element in an Android app or a web app, right? From the DOM. Let's assume this as a web, web's DOM actually. Okay. Let me run the scene. This is something I am running the scene, and what is happening when I run the scene, right? Actual game will actual game will run on the editor itself. Let's play the game in the editor also. We can play the game in the editor as well. Let it start. Okay, run. If I say run, I'm using my left arrows, right arrows, and the up arrow, down arrow to control the cat. So this is how we can play it in the editor as well. So the same thing has been built for Android and installed on your phone. And in the editor also, I lost all my life. And if you see the hierarchy, we can assume this hierarchy as our DOM. So for example, in the game over pop-up, we can see the UI camera, game, and there is a death pop-up. Inside the death pop-up, you have a game over button. So if you see this text, and in the inspector, you will see the game over text. So it means that we can assume this is a game over button. So if you want to interact with this game over button, we have to get into this hierarchy, which is from main, UI camera, game, and death pop-up, and the game over. So to interact with the game over button, we have to get this hierarchy, and we have to write it write it as an identifier for automating this game. So any questions so far? Are we clear about how we are running the game in the editor, how we are trying to identify the elements in the hierarchy? Yeah. Okay.
So my question was, there's like a standardization of hierarchy that needs to be there for QAs to write automation. Now, how difficult has it been for your team to sort of understand this hierarchy and adopt to it all the time? Or is there like a practice or a way to validate this hierarchy that you have?
This is a standard, if you get into an XR application, right? Whatever application that you develop, right? This is the hierarchy that the developer has to maintain. So let's take a web UI. Okay, let's take a web UI. Let's take a Gmail sign-in UI. Always the user names, the user name field will be there. So that is standard. That is static. So like that, this will be always static. It's a requirement change when we change the hierarchy of this game.
All right. Okay. I'm just building in context from a normal UI web app that we build. It's like a class name or anything that we give, right? And
yeah, there are different hierarchies as well. There are different ways to take it as well. We are just going with the hierarchy. Okay. There are different set of identifiers that is there for all Unity desktop.
So that's something the team has agreed to, and then
right. Actually, it is that we are taking now. So there are different ways to do it. I can show you that as well.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So now you people identified, understood how we are identifying the hierarchies, right? Identifying the game object. Any other questions? Okay. Let's come to the tool that we use to automate. The tool that we use to automate, right? That is called All Unity Desktop. When we want to automate an XR application or a 3D application, right? So it is totally different from automating an Android app or a web app. So when we write an automation for a web app or an Android app, it is a standalone test suite that we maintain. When I say standalone, the application that we built is on a different code base, and the test that we write is a different code base, where we install an APK out of the application which has been developed. Oh, sorry. Okay, so we build an APK out of the application and we install, and then we use similar, the Appium or WebDriver IO or whatever tools that we use, and we create our own page object, whatever framework that we use, right, that we are familiar with, and we automate this application. But when it comes to Alt Unity Desktop, right, the first point that we need to first point that we need to follow is the tool will sit with your application. the tool that you're using, right, that will sit with your application. So for example, if you see, there is a menu called Alt Unity Tools. So how we get this menu, right? So I have imported Alt Unity Tester as a library for this project. I mean the application project itself. The game is the application here, and inside the game I have imported Alt Unity Tester as a library. So when how I am getting this Alt Unity Tester as a library? There is an asset store in Unity, and you log in with your account in the asset store, and it's free of cost to create an Unity account. So after you create an account, right, if you go to the asset store and you search for Alt Unity Tester, and you get an option of Alt Unity Tester. It's taking time. So here itself, you will get an option to import that to the Unity instance that is open. So see, it is the open in Unity option is there. So if you open this, if you click on this button, this Alt Unity library will be imported as a library for your project in the instance that the Unity instance that is open. So that's how you get the Alt Unity tester tool that is getting imported to the project. So after you import the Alt Unity tester to your project, so you get this option. So Alt Unity tools, and whatever options that Alt Unity tester is providing you, you will be able to see all the options there. And if you see here, right, in the project hierarchy, this is kind of the project hierarchy. So in the project hierarchy, I am seeing an Alt Unity tester folder. It means that the library has been imported to the project. Whatever is there in the assets, right, the assets folder, it's the entire code base of your project. And Alt Unity tester is sitting with your project. I'll tell you why this Alt Unity tester is sitting with your project. Alt Unity has a two different component. One is the driver component, other one is the server component. The server component is the guy which is sitting with the application. So this is the server component. And this server component, what it does is, whenever you build this application, it will customize your application. And the customization is, it is attaching a prefab in your hierarchy, and it's opening an port on your device. For example, you build this application via Alt Unity tester, and you install it on your Android phone. So whenever you install the Alt Unity tester built APK or an application in your phone, that will expose the particular port number in your device, so that the driver can interact with your server, with your application. So this communication, this socket connection is getting exposed, and the driver is coming into your application to interact with whatever game objects that you provide and whatever actions that you want to perform on a game object. And that communication is happening via the socket connection, and then it is doing the actions on the game. Is there any questions? I can show you how these things happen. That is also there in the demo. So far, if the theory is not clear, maybe I can explain it again. Do anybody have any questions? Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me proceed. Okay, let me show you the difference of how the Alt Unity is customizing your app. Okay, I'm normally running the I'm normally running the game in the Unity editor, and if you see this hierarchy, it is as your project hierarchy. Nothing has been customized when you run it from the Unity editor. Okay, so nothing is, I will show you the difference. I have normally run the application, normally run the game. If I run this thing, nothing happens. Whatever the game has to do, that is there in the hierarchy. I'm stopping the game. Okay, and I am running the game via the Alt Unity tester. So Alt Unity tester editor is giving you an option to play it in the editor. If you play it in the editor, right, see, there is a runner prefab that is getting attached to your hierarchy. So which means Alt-Unity test runner, Alt-Unity server is attaching a prefab to your hierarchy that will be sitting as a hidden object in your application. Any questions so far? Are you clear about it? And if you see, there is a Alt-Unity a pop-up that is there, right? See, this is still starting the server. Let's wait for some time. It takes some time. But you are seeing the customization, right? Once I ran the application via the Alt-Unity tester. So this customization is opening a port number for, a port for you on the device which you run the application when the application is getting installed. Let it. If you see, it's clearly saying it's waiting for a connection on port number 13,000. So it is a default port. Alt-Unity tester uses 13,000 as a default port. We can also modify the port number as per our need. But this server is opening a port on the device which is in which the game is running. For example, if I build the same application with the Alt-Unity tester and install it on the phone, and it opens the port number 13,000 on my phone, so that the test that I am writing, right, it can go and directly speak to my phone on that particular port and start executing the test. Any questions, people? Hello. Okay. I assume there's no question. Okay. This is the customization part that is happening. Let's see how we have written the game. Okay. Let's go to the page object first. So these are all the page objects, as we said right earlier. So the hierarchy, let's take one of the game object here. So when I say game object, you can relate that with the web element in a web project, Android element in an Android project. So game object in the gaming project. Okay. So when I say game object, that is an element. That's all. Let's say run button. Okay, run button. So this is the run button. We were seeing it on the UI. So let's see how we have taken this run button from here. I run the scene. UI camera. Where is the okay? UI camera loadout start button. Okay, this is the run button in the game. So if I want to interact with this run button, this is the syntax. So this will be identified as an Alt-Unity object. So we are waiting for an Alt-Unity object with the name of with the name of this start button in the hierarchy. Any questions so far? So this is how we identify the objects in the game. And let's see the test now. We are using the same game objects here on the test also. Let's see the tests here. So we have a basic 10 tests that is there. For example, the first test is the counter should be displayed when starting the game. So whenever we start the game, the counter should be displayed. So for that test, what we are doing is we are clicking on a start button and we are clicking on a run button, and then we are checking for the countdown objects is enabled or not. So this is the very basic test that we do on the game. And next, so these tests are dependent on each other. So why we are making it dependent on each other in the sense in the one-time setup, right? If you see, there is a Alt-Unity driver instance that is getting initiated. So this driver guy, as I told you earlier, it will try to reach out to the default port of the application that is installed on your mobile. If you see, this is the port number. By default, it is 13,000. So the first step is we have built an application with Alt-Unity tester customized, which exposed the port number 13,000, and it has been installed on a device. When I say device, it can be an Android device and it can be a Windows editor as well. So now what I am going to show is show in the demo is a Windows editor, but it can be an Android APK also and it can be installed in an Android mobile as well. So the application that is getting installed on the device will expose its port number 13,000, and this driver that we are using on the test will look for the port number 13,000 on the device which is trying to execute the test. Any questions? Hello? Any questions? Okay. So this 13,000 port by default this alternate driver uses, and we have created an instance for page objects, and we are loading a scene called main. We are loading a scene called start. So start is the first scene that is getting, so whoever has installed your game on the mobile, right, you will be seeing a start button on the first screen, and then you click on the start button, and then you get the run screen, and after you click on run, you get the countdown. That is the flow. So for that, I have loaded a scene called start scene, and then we are clicking on the start button and run button, and the countdown is enabled or not. We are validating it. So at last, all the test runs, right? We are loading a scene called main scene. Once after this start button is clicked, the scene is getting internally changed on the game, and it is coming to a main scene. So this is the main scene that I am talking about. So let's show you the other scenes as well. So there are three scenes totally. One is the main scene, and the other one is a start scene. Other one is a stop scene. So the sample scene is a dummy one that we created for our internal things. Let's forget about this. So main scene, start scene, and stop scene is the three scenes that is involved in this game. So first scene is the start scene, and the second is the main one, and third one is the stop one. So for this test, we are using only two scenes. In the two scenes, start is the first scene, and main is the second scene. And after loading the start scene, we are doing all the tests. The first test is countdown validation, and the second test is after the game is over, we are getting the death pop-up or not. And the third test is clicking on game over button after clicking on the game over button, it should go to the main menu. So these are all the UI tests that we have written for the game. After all the test execution is done, right, we are unloading the main scene. So we are making the test as a dependent test because loading a scene and unloading a scene is a costly operation where your test will be flaky and it takes some time to load the scene and unload the scene. So since it is the one-time operation and it is in the one-time setup, so the scene loads first only once, and then all the tests are dependent on each other, and then we tear down the scene where the test is getting completed. So any questions so far? Shall I start running the test and see what's happening? All right, I'll start running the test. For running the test, right, Alt Unity tester has one of the major drawback as well. So for running the test, Alt Unity tester should have the application launched already by a third party. So the third party can be a manual third party. So I can start the application and start running the test. That is possible, and that is not possible in the CI cases. That is possible only on the real devices cases. And Alt Unity can, manual case, I can play it in editor and then run the test. That is one of the other case. And I can use ADB commands on the device to launch the application on the Android mobile, and then I can execute Alt Unity testers. That is the third case. And the fourth case is we can use Appium to launch the application alone, and from there Alt Unity tester can execute all your tests. This is a kind of small workaround that we need to do, that we need to support Alt Unity tester to launch the application. So there are different ways that can be done manually as well, and that can be done automatically as well. But Alt Unity tester does not have the capability to launch the application automatically. We have to use some other tools or some other ADB commands to launch the application. For now, what I have done is I have played the Alt Unity played the scene via the Alt Unity tester editor. So it opens the port number 13,000 connection on my editor. So it opens the connection and I say run all my tests. Let's see what happens. So it has validated the countdowns and it will wait until the game is over. Okay, the game is over. The game over is clicked and the main menu is there. And again, it is going for the next test. Yeah, again, the death pop-up, game over. Yeah, again, it is running the test. Again. Yeah, done. Total test this time and the 10 tests are passed and the automation is done. So this is the idea for it. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done, people. If you have a can this run and headless? No, Ravi. For now, yeah, headless mode is possible. When the headless mode is possible is Unity will run on the headless mode on the CI. So if the Unity is running on the headless mode on the CI, this can also run on the headless mode CI instance.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other questions? I see tests are written using C# language. Yeah. So since I have done the editor automation test, right? This game has been developed on top of C#. I also used C# to automate on the editor. So if you go for device oriented testing, right? If you build an APK for Android and install the Android APK on the device, then what happens is you can use Alt-Unity driver library, which is supporting Python, C# and Java. You can write your tests on 3 different languages, but the game will be on C#. Is that valid only functional testing? So far we have tried only for functional testing. Maybe wait, I'm not looking at the questions.
Yeah, we have one more question from Muthu.
Yeah.
Is that validated only functional testing or can perform non-functional?
Yeah, that's what we have tried it so far only for the functional test. The non-functional test, we have to explore things. We haven't tried so far. Any question? And I think so non-functional is not possible as well. It's completely on the buttons. I am not much sure about it, but as far as I explored, this is only for the functional things. Yeah. Yeah, I have 2 more questions. Is it okay? Give me the questions. Okay. Is that valid only function? Okay, that is what I. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's it. Okay. Hey, thanks, people.
People, we can see a lot of questions. If you still have any questions, please feel free to use our chat box.
People, I will share the project on the GitHub, and that will be there on the vodQA page. You can get it.
Sure. We will be sending along with the thank you mail, as well as will be posted in the GitHub repo in the website, Coimbatore CB website. Over to you, Kaushik.
Okay. Thanks, JC, and thanks, Deepika, for the fantastic session today. So we really enjoyed, and we really have a lot of key takeaways from today's session. And as per the agenda, we have next session from Abinandhan, who's going to take a good session on understanding teams, roles, and responsibilities. To say about Abinandhan, Abinandhan is playing a role of QA lead here in ThoughtWorks with almost 10.5 years of experience. And overall 10.5 years of experience, and here with ThoughtWorks for almost 2.5 years of experience. And he has played a diversified role as a QA lead and as an RPA developer and as a test analyst. So we are good to have you today, Abinandhan, and over to you.
Thank you, Kaushik. Hi all, hope you're doing well. So currently we'll get into a topic which is off technical. So in the recent agile world, people are facing challenges in understanding their roles and responsibilities, and people also are not aware of few of the existing process and tools available which could help resolve this. So I'm going to give a mild walkthrough on this today. Get started. So this is our agenda. We'll see what is the problem statement. We'll see what is the RASI metrics. We'll see how we can align responsibilities for roles at each competency levels. Okay. So problem statement, right? In today's agile world, we have a very diversified team. So we have team members like project manager, business analyst, SMEs, devs, clients, tech leads, etc. Right? And also like within each one of these roles, there is a different competency level. So there can be a beginner in a team, there can be a proficient member in the team, and there can be someone who is an expert, right? So with these things, now the complexity of understanding the responsibilities is introduced. Okay. So any idea like what is the RASI metrics, or anyone here, right, have knowledge on this RASI? Okay, cool. Looks like no one has heard about it. Let me explain. So RASI stands for so responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So as you read the words, right, it pretty much summarizes the task under each of these items. So responsible. Okay. So before like explaining these items, right, let me explain why RASI was formed. So RASI helps in defining a clear and concise role boundaries. So currently in our team, we were roughly 15 plus members with various roles, and there was gaps in people owning responsibilities, which was a potential risk for the delivery as well as the quality. And with this RASI exercise, it helped in identifying the boundaries for each piece. So when we say RASI, right, a responsible person is one who actually does the ground job. So he wants it, he wants the work, he ensures it's done. And accountable is a person or stakeholder, right, who is the owner of the work, which means he coordinates with the responsible guy and see if the like a task or any deliverable is being taken care, and he ensures that whatever the consultation and whoever needs to be informed, right, it's been taken care. And when we see an accountable person, right, so it is recommended that it can be a single single accountable person. So moving on to the consulted role, so if the responsible person or the accountable person, right, if he or she needs any inputs, then they can get consultation with different stakeholders. So those are the people who we call as consulted. So informed is someone we keep in the CC, right? So they just need to know there is a task going on. And if any inputs, right, other than coming from consultation, right, they can also provide inputs to the task. So let's see a sample RASI metrics. If you see, right, the columns, we can see the list of tasks is being listed out. And in the column wise, in the columns, you can see, right, there are different stakeholders, roles and their names listed out. So we can add the task and the task description, and also we can mark like for a particular task, what is their contribution. So I'll give a sample. So I'll walk through this with an example with a sample application. Let's say take this is a very straightforward data processor application. So when the process begins, right, let's assume this is a HRM application. So let's assume a candidate is hired, and the system processes the candidate data. If the data is without any validation errors, then the next sequences it will publish events to the downstreams. In case if there are any errors, right, there is activity called fault store analysis and fix. And once this activity is done, then again, the data is sent for candidate data processing. Now let's take this particular task of false store and analysis and fix. So I have listed out the description of the false store analysis and data fix. As per the expectation, it is a place where false store is, we have defined what is a false store and what needs to be done if we encounter data in the false store. So all those information has been provided as description here. Now let's assume there are various stakeholders here. Now how this activity happened is we included all these stakeholders in a call, and we presented the one owning this activity, right? So they get consulted with different stakeholders and they agreed to this point. Now in the project, if again if there is any let's say like John is rolled off or Mary is rolled off, right? And if a new person is coming to the project, right? Then having this document in place, need not need to explain this this process again and again. So looking at this document, it's a single reference, and people who are joining newly or who are getting rotated, right? So they can understand better on the different tasks and so who are responsible or consulted or informed or accountable. Moving on to the next slide. So any questions here, folks? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So having seen this slide, now we'll look at the second problem statement. So how to solve the responsibilities understanding between different competency levels. So as you know, competency is nothing but the different levels, like starting from the beginner, moving on to the proficient expert, right? So why we want to have the roles like assigned with responsibilities? Because accepting responsibility is very crucial for the project success. So it also helps each individual to understand their contributions, their learnings and mistakes, right? Without being weighed down by regret, guilt or shame. So it is an opportunity to list out the bare minimal expectation as responsibilities for a particular role. And in this exercise, each and every role with different competency can challenge and agree to the expectations. So these are the recommended steps when we are doing this exercise. So even before, let's assume a QA team having diversified professions or diversified experienced folks, right? So even before connecting with them, try to list out all the possible responsibilities against each competency. Then usually a QA lead, a project manager and tech lead, like, so they can get together and get the list of items prepared even before having it presented to the other PAQs. So I'll just show you an example of how this exercise was done in our project. So we took this mural software to accomplish this. So what happened is, so we have listed down what is the competencies to demonstrate of a novice, what is the competencies to demonstrate as an advanced beginner. Then we also mentioned like what is their responsibilities in the project and what they need to take care in the project. And as part of this exercise, right, again, when we relate it to the RACI, right, let's assume if a member is rolling on and rolling off the project, right, then the member in rolling on, so we'll get a good idea, a fair amount of idea, like what he or she needs to supposed to be contributed to the project. So as part of this exercise, we got feedback from our different stakeholders like TLs and even the participants. And upon the feedback, we also got action items aligned, and currently folks are also working on this. So this is also a very amicable way to get the responsibilities shared with your peers. So I am done with this. Do we have any questions? Okay, I take that as a no. Over to you, Kaushik.
Yeah, thanks, Abinandhan. So that's really makes sense, even though it's non-technical, right? So everyone should know the responsibilities and act act based on that, right? So thank you for the session, Abinandhan. So let's move on the next topic. So next is contract testing using PACT. We have Anil and Lovish, who is help us to understand how you can strategize your PACT using contract testing. And Anil, so Anil is a quality analyst with 10 years of experience, and he is based out of Gurgaon location. And Lovish is an app developer who has 6+ years of experience. And yeah, stage is yours, Anil and Lovish. Over to you.
Thanks. All right. So my introduction has already been given, but just for the sake of simplicity, let me introduce myself again. Hi, my name is Anil Soni, and I am basically a quality analyst. Okay, and I am located in and working in ThoughtWorks Gurgaon. I have around 10+ years of experience in IT industry. Currently associated with ThoughtWorks for more than or close to 3 years now. Yeah, with this, I'll hand over to Lovish to introduce himself.
Thank you, Anil. Hi, everybody. This is Lovish, and I'm from ThoughtWorks Gurgaon, and I'm working with ThoughtWorks for around 3 years. And I'm an app dev. So luckily, I got an opportunity to attend vodQA. So let's begin the session, Anil. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lovish. All right, so let me just screen share. I hope you can see my screen. It's still loading. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So today we will present you a talk on contract testing. Let me just start with the agenda. So in the agenda, we will be covering about microservices. Then we will cover about the integration testing and the pros and cons of using the integration testing. Going forward, we will introduce you with the concept and the implementation of contract testing and how do we use a PACT and PACT broker tool for contract testing. Then we will look into the contract file and how the implementation is done for the contract file. Going forward, we will also try to demonstrate the same use case basis on that same thing. And next is we will look into the PACT best practices. And finally, we will conclude our presentation with the integration with the pipelines. How do we do that? Integration of the PACT basically. All right, so let's move ahead and see what are microservices and how do we basically integrate the microservices. So let me go ahead with the first part of it. So yeah, as you can see here, we have in front of the screen, we have two different architecture. One is a simplified version of a monolithic architecture, and on the right side, we have microservice architecture. So in monolithic, basically, it is basically a single tier application where the entire backend and the front end code base is kept into a single tier application. Okay, the deployment happens all at once, regardless of where the change is. All right. Good thing is everything is placed into the same place, but there are some few drawbacks that with the introduction of new features, the code base becomes more clumsy and more complex. The deployment takes much time. It leads to issues with the scalability and the maintenance. All right. So developers start implementing the same monolithic architecture into the microservice architecture, where basically it is split into multiple small chunks of autonomous and isolated modules, where the each module is behaving as an autonomous module. All right, and these modules are basically called microservices. These microservices communicate with each other through the use of APIs. As you can see on the right hand side, that this is basically an overview of the microservices where they are interacting with each other via some APIs. All right, let's move ahead. So we'll see how the integration happens. So this is a simplified version of 3 microservices from a big architecture. As you can see over here, that we have retailer service, the product service, and the consumer service. So product service is basically communicating with the retailer service through the get API, which is an item/item ID, and is expecting a response of 200 with some message. All right. Since product service is expecting a response from retailer service, so retailer service is termed as a provider, whereas the product service, since it is consuming the API, it is termed as a consumer. The same goes for the customer service. So in our demo purpose, we will use the same diagram and same APIs to basically communicate, show the demo for the PACT. All right. So let's move ahead and see how do we perform, integration test on these services. All right. As you can see here, this is the same diagram, and here basically we are using integration test suite, and these integration test suite basically are kept in the consumer level. As you can see that the product service is acting as a consumer, and the integration test suite is placed in the consumer side of the code. Okay, the integration test will basically communicate to the retailer through the real-time API get item / item ID. Okay, and basically we will be asserting the response and the JSON, that is ID comma name. Okay, and once that is verified, we will make sure that the integration test is passed, and everything, the communication basically between the retailer and the product service happens smoothly, right? The same goes for the customer service. But this is the ideal situation. In real situation, what goes wrong is, can be multiple things. The first thing is the retailer service is down, for example. All right, then your integration test, which is basically calling the item / item ID, will start failing. Okay, it can happen the retailer service again is a little slow, and the integration test will behave work like in a delay mode, right? So there are certain issues that are happening here, right? And you can see that there is a direct communication that is happening between two microservices, which leads to these issues, right, in our integration test. And what if the retailer service has changed its contract or the response? Now the integration test again will start failing on the consumer side. There was no mistake of the product service, but still the integration test start failing. Now you have to basically debug and try to find out the root cause. Ultimately, you can see that the control is not in the hand of the consumer, and every control to modify this API response is basically with the provider, right? So these are the certain issues that we see in the integration test. So let's go ahead and see the pros and cons of the integration test. As I discussed, it helps first let's discuss the pros basically. So it helps to test the end-to-end integration between the services, which is like a real time in the production environment, right? So this basically gives us the confidence to release. But there are cons. It basically increases the dependencies between multiple services, right? And what if the services are like in case of e-commerce websites or any website where you have so many hundreds of microservices, right? So it increases the dependency. It gives the slower feedback. The time to consume to fix this will be more, and it also breaks due to the external factors, as we have just discussed, like what if the service is slow, what if they have changed, the provider have changed the response, what if the provider is returning me slow response, then your integration test and the time to basically release to the production pipeline will be delayed, right? So these are the things that are there in the integration test, which leads us to the introduction of basically contract testing. So I'll hand over to Lovish here to basically introduce us to the contract testing. Over to Lovish.
Thank you, Anil. All right. So now after understanding the microservices and the challenging in the integration and their testing, now let's talk about the contract testing. So as we have seen in the integration test that there is a consumer and there is a provider, and same is on the current diagram, that product service is a consumer and retailer service is a provider. So basically, instead of directly hitting the retailer service, product service will mock the provider and run a consumer test against that mocked provider. That consumer test will be a unit test and it will satisfy the test against that mock provider. And after satisfying that particular unit test, it will generate a contract. That contract will basically contain the whole contact information, as you can see in the contact diagram, that the API should be of get type, path should be item/item ID, and the response should be ID and name in the JSON. So this kind of contract will be created by the consumer, and now then it will be the responsibility of the provider, that is the retailer service, to take care of that contract and satisfy the requirement of their consumer. So you can relate this whole scenario to a real life example. For example, if you are a company or a buyer and you acquire something, then you make some agreements, some contracts, like we will give you this and you will provide this. So there are some legal documents, we call them contract, PACT, right? And this is just that kind of contract where consumer and provider align together that this is my API, I will give you this, and I will always satisfy your contract. This is that kind of thing. Yeah, that is all about the context testing. And now let's see the advantages of context testing. So as we have seen, like it provides all the benefits which is provided, almost all the benefits which is provided by integration testing. And if it gives the confidence to release, that is the most important benefit we need from a testing. Like we need the confidence to move forward to live on prod, right? And it runs independently without need of other services in real time. I already explained in integration testing, it hits a real-time API, but in contact testing, it doesn't. And it also runs with stability, reliability, and easy to maintain because you don't need the service live every time, right? You can anytime change the things and rely with the teams can rely with each other, right? And it gives the feedback faster than the integration testing because it is independent upon the service, and definitely it will increase the speed as well. That was about the advantages of the context testing in comparison to the integration testing. Next slide, please. So after learning about the contract testing concept, we need some tools to implement that, right? And there are some other ways as well, but here we are talking about the PACT. PACT is a tool, and next slide, please. Yeah. So here we have the PACT framework. So PACT framework provides us some classified libraries and classes, which we can use to implement the contract testing, the consumer test, provider test, publishing of context. So these kind of libraries and classes are provided by the PACT framework. It also provides us a PACT broker. So here you can see it's a code first consumer driven contact testing tool because consumer decides the contract and publish that. And then provider takes care of that. That's why we call it code first consumer driven. And the contract is generated during the execution of automated consumer tests. For example, you have set it up the consumer test, then you just need to run them in the pipeline. It will automatically test the scenario and create a contract and publish to the provider, right? And the best part is only part of the communication that are actually used by consumer get tested. So you don't need to worry about the unintentional changes or any provider behavior not used by current consumer is free to change. Okay, so that's all the flexibility provided by PACT for the contact testing. We have also mentioned the PACT documentation in this slide. Later when we will share, you can refer to the original documentation. Next slide. Right. So after learning about contract testing in the PACT framework, now the best part is PACT broker. So if you again go back to the real life example, when you are acquiring some company or something, then you need a contract, right? But there are a lot of contracts you are already having. Then who will manage that? You need an agent, you need a third party company who will manage your contracts and keep it safe. And whenever you need, you can get them and check, right? So here the PACT broker is that agent. So you can call it agent, and its official name is PACT broker. It actually acts like a broker. It takes care of the contracts and the provider gets from it. Let's see the diagram flow wise. So you see product service is a consumer, and it runs a consumer test with a mock provider, and after satisfying that consumer test, which is actually a unit test, it generates a contract. Okay, and contract mentioned that get API 200 status should be there and the ID and name should be in the response, right? And then it published that contract to PACT broker, and after that consumer's responsibility is over. Consumer is now free for the other work and they can now enjoy their life, right? Now PACT broker is having the contract, and same will be done by other consumers. And this PACT broker can have infinite number of interactions. Like if there are multiple providers and consumers, then PACT broker is having their own database, which is by default PostgreSQL, and and it holds all the context with its storage, right? and then the providers can contact the PACT broker and ask, hey PACT broker, I am the provider and let me know who are the consumers of my application. And then PACT broker will send all the contracts to that provider. Okay, so product service and customer service are your consumer, and here are their contracts, and now you have to satisfy that. So this is the role of PACT broker in the overall architecture. Yeah, that's all about the PACT broker. And the next slide, please. Yeah. Now, as I said, once the consumer runs a unit test and generate a contract and it publishes to the PACT broker, then it's very important to understand what is that contract, right? That contract is nothing, is just a JSON file which tells you about the whole interaction document. If you see on the left side, that is a high level structure of that JSON, that there is a provider name, consumer name, interaction, the important part, that what is the interaction of this contract, and the metadata, the some version specific things. Now, if you see the right hand side, is we are maximizing the interaction part. There it is telling that this is the first interaction is an array, because in that relation, the provider and consumer relation, there can be multiple interactions, right? Product service can consume multiple APIs of a retailer provider, right? So that's why that's an array, and right now we have only one interaction. So it is telling that the description is get item details for item ID, request should be like this, response should be like this, and the provider state is get item details. So what's the state here? So state is a very important thing, because when the provider will fetch the contract, then it needs something unique so that it can match the interaction and satisfy that. And the state is that unique thing. So the state of every interaction should be unique, because by this state, provider will map their test with this contract and run them. So this is the overall contract file components we have seen: provider, consumer, and the interaction, and then the metadata. Yeah, that's all about the contract file. And after learning that how it happens at the consumer side, let's have a quick go through on provider service verification. So as I said, like there is a state in the contract for every interaction. So what provider does, when a provider write a provider test, it mention a state, like for this state, this is my response, right? And then after setting that state from consumer, it mock the test data. So it actually mock their service and mock like this would be the response when the contract will hit my API. And after sending the real-time HTTP request, it checks the response, like the response sent by provider is matching with the contract response or not. If matching, then it asserts and verify the PACT. Now, just one thing I missed here is about what it verifies. So PACT contract testing never verifies the values. It verifies the structure of the response. Like if you have mentioned that in the response you need the ID and name, and ID should be an int type and name should be of string type, then PACT will always take care of that. So if, for example, if the provider changes the int to a ID to a string type in future, then your PACT will break, because consumer has mentioned that ID should be of int type. So it never checks for the value, it always checks for the structure of the response, of the data type of the response, right? So that's all about the consumer and service provider side involvement in the context testing using the PACT broker. And after learning this, I think now we can go through the demo and all the other parts. And now I will hand over to Anil.
Thanks, Lovish. So now what we'll do is we'll have a quick demo walkthrough. I'm going to just give me a moment. Okay, I did a yeah. So let me just go through the code here. So we will be using the same problem statement, that there are three services. One is a provider, that is a retailer, and two are the consumers. Let's see first the walkthrough for the retailer service, which is a provider. And in here, for the purpose of easy this thing, so I have placed a Docker compose file for the PACT broker. Basically, we need a PACT broker, right, in between, as Lovish has mentioned. So we are basically using a PACT broker image to spin up a PACT broker. All right, and it is basically exposed on 9292 port, localhost 9292 port. Okay, since the contract file, since a PACT broker is responsible to keep the contract files, and hence it needs a database, so we are using a Postgres for that. Okay, so I have already spun up the container for the for this PACT broker, and I'll just show you that it is exposed on localhost 9292. So for the simplicity, I have already created a contract file here. So just forget about this one. I'll just see that we have a UI of the PACT broker where it is divided to multiple components. That is the consumer, the provider, the latest PACT published time, the webhook status, and when it was last verified. All right. Let's go to the retailer service first, and we'll see what exactly is there in this code. Okay, so this is basically, this application or service is basically a Spring Boot Java application. Okay, and to make use of, since it's a provider, to make use of PACT, we are using these two dependencies: PACT JVM provider, Spring, and JUnit. I hope my screen is visible and the font is, you are able to see the font. Please let me know, Lovish.
Yeah, for me, it's good.
Okay, fine. I have just intentionally increased the font size here. All right. So we are using these two dependencies for the PACT JVM provider, which is Spring and JUnit. Okay, and let's go to the source code of this service. Let's go to the retailer controller, where you can see that we are using two get APIs. One is get item / item ID, and other is the get order / order ID. Okay, let's go to this API, which is basically using get item details. If I go inside this, so this is a retailer service method where you can see that I am just returning a small object of type item, and this is hard coded. All right, the idea is basically, just understand that the idea is the data is either coming from third-party service or from a database, but for the simplicity, I am just hard coding these values. All right. Going to the retailer controller, you can see that these are the two APIs which we have seen in that diagram, right? Two consumers were there and one retailer which are interacting with this provider. Okay, these are the two APIs. Now let's see, and let's see the product which is acting as a consumer in our case. Okay, I'll go to the build Gradle first, and we'll see what is the dependency that we are using. So this is the dependency that we are using for PACT. Okay, to basically load all the annotations and the libraries. Okay, going into the main class. Here you can see that this is the product service. Okay, this is internally hitting this API, which is the API from the provider / item / some random ID. Okay, we are getting some output of it, right? And it is basically consumed by this consumer. Now the idea is this consumer needs to, this is the responsibility of this consumer to basically verify the contract test so that the provider will adhere to. Okay, any expectations from the provider has to be written in the contract test by this consumer in its consumer code. Okay, let's see the code. You can see, okay, before that, I'll just want to convey one more thing. Once the PACT is generated, right? So a consumer has generated a contract test using a mock provider, and now we want to publish this PACT contract file, right, onto the PACT broker. So this is the Gradle task that we are using. Here we need to specify two mandatory parameters, which are PACT directory, okay, and the PACT broker URL, which is basically the host URL for the PACT broker, okay, which we have just shown. Now, once that contract file is generated, it will be published through this task. So let's see the code for the generating the contract file. Okay, so here what we are doing is we are creating a mock provider, okay, and we are mocking this retailer, which is a provider in our case, right? And this method is basically, this is the method which is basically responsible to generate the contract file with the annotation @PACT, and it shows the relationship between the PACT, between the consumer and the provider, which are product and retailer. Okay, this is the response file which we need, response basically which we need. Okay, as you can see here, we are using all the fields which are mandatory fields which the consumer needs. Okay, and the data type of these fields, as Lovish has mentioned, that we are more interested into getting the data type and the structure of the response instead of just the values. right? And values are no matter in the PACT test. This part is basically is important, which is responsible to generate the contract file. As just remember that what we have seen in here. Just give me a moment. Yeah, as we have seen in here, what are the interactions, consumer, provider, and everything. So this is basically kept in this code. The state, okay, which is a uniquely identified state for each consumer and the provider for specific contract. This is the path, that is the API. This is the method get post. What status that we expect, what is the header, what is the response body that the consumer is expecting from the provider. Now going ahead, this is the unit test that we will be running. Okay, this is basically using the same method, get item details. As if I go inside it, you can see that it is internally hitting the same API, right? Get API. It is mocked because the retailer is mocked here. Okay, and it is basically we are doing an assertion here. Once this assertion is passed, it will basically generate a contract file with respect to these entire details. All right, so what we'll do is we will quickly run this and we'll see how the contract file is generated. Going here, I'm here, so I have this Gradle task, GRADLEW test. It says build successful. Let's go back to the code. This is the product, and I will reload this, and it has not generated. Let me run it from here. All right, let's see. All right, there was some problem probably, but as you can see that a target folder is generated. Okay, and inside the target folder we have PACTs, and a PACT is generated. So this is the same PACT data, okay, generated contract file in form of JSON that Lovish was talking about, which contains the important details of provider, consumer, and the interactions and the metadata. This interaction is the same interaction which we have kept in our code. All right, the matching rules and the body response and the header. All right, so this task is done, that the file is generated. Now we need to basically push this file or publish this file onto the PACT broker. So for that purpose, we need this task, PACT publish. Okay, let me now try again from here, the PACT publish task. Okay, sorry. All right, before that, let me just show you here. There is no consumer as product and retailer here. Okay, so I'll try to publish this and see what happens. I hope it gets generated there. So you can see that the message is says that it is created and it is published. So let's see here. I'll reload this, and you can see here that the second row, product and retailer, less than a minute, the latest pack has been published. But it was verified long back today morning. I ran it. That's why otherwise it would show that it is not yet verified. All right. So this is the first task that has been created from the consumer side. Now it's the responsibility of the retailer, I mean, the provider, to verify these contract tests. Okay, let's go to the code of retailer. Okay, so in here, I will directly go to this file. Here, let me just tell you that for each consumer there will be we are just generally maintain a separate file, Java file, okay, which contains all the tests that we need to perform. All right, so let's see the product PACT tests. Here we are so we need to specify the annotations for the which product, which consumer and which provider. We need to specify the PACT broker URL because provider needs the contract file from the PACT broker, right? So it needs the URL of it. Now in here, as Lovish was mentioning, that there is a state, right? It should be a uniquely identified state for each contract file between the consumer and provider. What happens here is, in this test, when this test will run, right? the controller or the PACT will try to find all the contracts between the provider and the consumer from the PACT broker. Among those contracts, it will try to find out the contract file with respect to this specific state. And with this state, it will perform the assertion of that contract file. All right. Here we have written a simple test. We have mocked this data. Okay, we have mocked the retailer service. This retailer service is the same retailer service where we are calling these methods. So now once this retailer service is mocked, we are simply mocking it and calling the method and returning this same method. All right. As soon as this method is called, right, the state, the contract file with respect to this state will be pulled, and it will be verified with respect to the assertion that has been happened. Okay. What I'll do is I'll quickly run the contract test. Okay. Yeah. So I have to use this test task to basically run the contract tests. All right, it says again build verified. Let me go here and let me just run it. There is some problem with the Gradle test. What I'll do is I will run it from here, retailer. Okay. Now, as you can see here, it says that it returns a response with the status code and something. Everything is passed. So if I go in here, okay, I am not very generally it should. Give me 1 minute.
I think it's taking the past data.
Yeah, it is taking past data. The thing is, we need to run it from the Gradle test. Why? Because we are using in the Gradle file, we are using a field which says to publish the tests on the URL. So basis on that. All right. What I'll do is, this could be a happy case, but it's not working. I'm not sure why. What I'll do is let me just try and show you the negative scenario basis on this, that consider that the retailer service, that is the provider, has changed some code basis on that. Okay. And what by mistake the provider has changed the variable from price to the total. Okay. And now it is pushed to the pipeline. The test will run. Okay. And now our understanding is the test should fail. Okay. Let's see what happens. I hope this time it will fail. Let's see that. All right. As you can see that the test is failed, and the data is exposed to this location. I will quickly show you the location, and it is not showing here. Let me reload this. As you can see here, this is completed in last 1 minute, and it is saying that it is failed, right? This is how basically we are able to prove that the contract test is being pushed into the PACT broker and the assertion is failed. If you want to see the result, you may take the help of this file. Okay, and you will be able to see it. So let me just go to the retailer service, and it will where is it? Build retailer, build reports test index HTML. Let me just open it in here. All right. Here you can see that it says that there is a mismatch and it is expecting price, but it was missing. So the contract file says that we need the price, but it is missing, right? So in this way, you make sure that the contract the provider has to adhere with the contract that is supplied by the consumer. Let's go here and see the contract file. So this is the pact between the product and retailer. Okay, the same things are we are using here. That is the method, the path, and the retailer, that is the provider, should respond with this data. Okay, and now let me go back and this as you can see, customer and retailer, it is passed in last 2 minutes, because the retailer has run the provider test with respect to this Gradle task. Okay, as you can see that there were basically 3 tests. Okay, one is failed. This failed test is the provider product, that is first consumer test, which is failed. Okay, now what I'll show you here is I will show the network graph. What is network graph? Network graph is basically the way of showing who is the consumer, who is the provider. As you can see, there are 2 consumers. Okay, the arrow originating from the consumer and it is going inside the retailer. Okay, in this way you can see that if there are hundreds of consumer and hundreds of retail providers, the network graph will be very helpful for you to see the peak picture basically. All right, now what I'll quickly do is I'm here, retailer service. I will rerun this test by changing the details here, and it will basically run the test again. I'm saving this data. Okay, and I will run this test again, and let's see if it is passing or not. This is my last try for this product service. Let's see. All right, it says 3 tests are run, and going back to this, and if I run it, you can see that both of them are verified in the last 1 minute, right? So this is how basically you can run your test on the local. Let's go back to the presentation. So I'm here now. I'll start the slide mode. Now with this, I am done with the walkthrough. If I go to the next part, this is basically we need to integrate this PACT with our pipelines. So let's go to the pipelines quickly. As you can see on my left hand side, it's the consumer pipeline where the changes has happened from the consumer side. Okay, the service from the consumer side, it has run the execute the tests, unit tests, it generates the contract files, it publishes the contract file into the PACT broker, and finally the code is deployed to the next environment. All right, there is no issue in that. Now on the right hand side, you can see that there is a provider pipeline, okay, which is basically responsible to verify those tests. Now the code has been pushed by the provider, it executes those tests. Okay, during the execution, PACT will verify the PACT test. If it is verified, the same code will be pushed to the next environment. Okay, and there won't be an issue. But if it is not verified and the PACT fails, then the pipeline will be blocked. In this way, you make sure that provider will not mistakenly or unintentionally does not push the code which is hampering the consumer code. Okay, so this is how basically we make sure that if the services are microservices are working in silos, they or we are using the mocks, basically they should adhere to the said contracts and the expectations between the consumer and the provider. All right, with this I have come to an end from my side. I will hand over to Lovish to take care of the rest of the presentation. Over to Lovish.
Thank you so much, Anil, for beautifully presented the demo. And now, after learning about the contract testing and the PACT tool, it's very important to know when to use the PACT framework, because it's not useful for every use case, right? So next slide, please. So I just read it out. In the right situation, PACT should make testing your integrations less painful than traditional integration tests, as I said earlier. But in the wrong situation, it will probably just as painful or maybe more worse experience than before. So we need to very conscious about our use cases before choosing any framework or any testing, contract testing kind of thing. Yeah. Now let's see some pros and cons. So let's first of all, let's see the advantages that you and your team control the development of both the consumer and provider. So basically, if you are in a project and you have multiple teams, then the provider and consumer should be in the same infrastructure. Otherwise, it would not be possible to have the PACT broker common for both things, right? So because in my project, there was an example, we are collaborating with a third party stakeholder of client, and their service wants to test our API via PACT, but that was not possible because their services were running in a different infrastructure, different cloud, and ours are indifferent. So that is not a good use case there. The consumer and provider are both under active development. So you are a consumer, but the API you are consuming, the provider service is just on a pause state. Not of any of the team is working on actively on that service. Then it's very hard if you put some requirement and they will fulfill that, right? So both the services should be in the active development, and there is a small enough. There should be a small enough group of consumer for a given provider. The example is like if you think about the large enterprise system, there the PACT would be a very bad tool because it would not be able to handle a lot of hundreds of consumers for 10 providers, right? It would be very complex in that scenario. So we need to be conscious about the size of our use case, size of our infrastructure of our services, right? And then if you see the disadvantages, that testing APIs where the team maintaining the other side of integration will not also be using PACT. So again, the same example I was referring, like you are collaborating with a different team, but they are not happy with the PACT. They don't like PACT. They like something else. Then it's again not so good use case where you use PACT and they use something else. That's a very obvious point. Testing APIs with the consumers cannot be individually identified, right? For example, if you are running you're using a public API, then you are a consumer of that API, but you don't know who's the provider. The provider will never be there to satisfy your contract. And then the last one is testing providers with the consumer and provider team do not have good communication channels. For example, again, I will put up my example of my project. Like we are dealing with a third-party stakeholder, but they are a different company than other than ThoughtWorks, and they are having different ways of working than ThoughtWorks, totally different from ThoughtWorks. Then in that scenarios, we cannot choose something common for testing, right? So we should have a same understanding, same communication channels where we can easily collaborate with each other. So these kind of things need to be very, very clear and conscious while choosing the PACT for contact testing. So yeah, that's all about when to use PACT and when to not use that. Yeah, that's it from my side. And the next slide, please. I think we are done. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening us, and any questions are welcome.
All right, so we will share the link to the presentation, and we will share the link to the demo as well. Probably if anybody wants to make use of it, they can use it. Yeah, so we are done with that. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so thanks Anil and thanks Lovish for another interesting session for the day. So like since organizations are interested on moving towards shift left, so this contract testing is going to play a major role on it, and we are happy to have this on today's talk. And with this, we'll move on to the last and final talk for the day. So we have Shivaling, who is going to take a session on PACT and Mock It. So Shivaling is having an overall experience of 13 years and here at ThoughtWorks for almost 10 years. So he's having wide area of domain experience such as finance, insurance, and real estate. And he's passionate over taking QA trainings, and he is also passionate on taking automation related workshops. And over to you, Shivaling.
Right. Thank you. First of all, thanks to Anil and Lovish for setting the context on the contract testing and moreover on the PACT. That will set a basis for the presentation I'm going to continue now. Let me share my screen. All right, so I'll just give you a brief about how we leverage the benefit of the PACT itself. As Lavnesh also told us, like we should be aware of like when to use the PACT, when not to use the PACT. So we leverage the benefit of the PACT. There is an additional version you get called PACT mock server, where you could mock the behavior from the backend. So I'll talk about how we leverage the benefit of the PACT and how we mock the application behavior which we used in our project. Cool. So before I get into the details, these are the things I will be talking around. First, let's discuss about our business case, the problem we had to solve. And then let's also understand about the mocking itself. And then let's try to differentiate what mocking is, what is a stub. And then let's understand a little bit around the mocking tools which are available. And then let's discuss about the approach we have taken to solve the problem we are discussing about. And then at the end, we will also discuss pros and cons of the approach we have taken. Cool. With that, let's discuss the business case we are going to talk about. So this is, we were working for a client. Sorry for the confidential matter. I won't be taking the client name and the project name we are working on. This is basically a banking platform where a relationship manager will be assisting a customer to buy a products. So customers are a high net worth customers where relationship manager and the customer would meet over a online platform, or the customer has walked into a branch and they have started an application. Let's quickly look at how would a journey look like. So here the journey is like whenever customer is willing to buy some of the insurance product or any other products. So these are high net worth customers. They want to manage all of their assets and liabilities through one UI or one platform. They don't want to go to a different providers and manage their assets and liabilities. So hence, there will be one relationship manager from a specific bank. This manager will be helping the customer, and they would say like, I'm interested in buying this product. The problem is like when the customer says they want to buy a product from XYZ, this bank should have a tie-up with that XYZ product, and journey should be seamless on the banking platform itself. And there will be to and fro transactions between the banking platform and the products platform. Right, so it's like an example when from your Amazon or Flipkart, you might be using UPI, or you might be using some other payment method or credit card payment method. You will be actually landed on that platform. You will make a payment and come back to Flipkart. Right, so something similar behavior the customer will experience. So when the first time customer and the relationship manager is meeting, they will be going through all the details, assets and liabilities details, and they will understand the product that customer wants to buy, and they will select a product. So once they have selected the product, they want to understand in detail. So there is an issue of the compliance as well. From the banking domain, you cannot share all the data to the product domain. And from the product domain, you cannot keep all the product related information on the banking domain. So there is a compliance issue as well. That's why a customer will have to be navigated to a products domain. So they will navigate to product domain. They will go through all the illustrations of the document and the product they have selected. There could be multiple products they would have selected. It will give an illustration of all the products. Once they have understood all the details of the product, so they will again be taken back to the banking platform. So there is to and fro movement happening between the banking domain and the product domain. So what happens, like once the customer understands the product and they make mind that they are okay to continue buying the product, they will have to also validate the assets they have, the liabilities they have, how much they will be able to make a payment for. They will go through all the details and they will generate a report. Once they validate everything, again, they will be taken to the product platform to actually update more details around the payment, acknowledgement. They will have to do the signatures. It will be a long journey on the product platform. So they will do this journey, and then again, they will be navigated back to the banking platform to do a finalization on the product purchase. So what they do is here they will have to upload all the documents. They will have to take a snapshot. Few documents they will have to keep it with the banking domain, and few documents they will have to share with the product where they have actually purchased. So this is the business case. Again, because of the security and the data privacy reason, I cannot show you the actual application. So we created a tiny demo application. I'll quickly show you the demo tiny application we created. Okay, so let's assume this is a banking domain where customer has gone through all the products. They have selected, they did a login, they have selected all these multiple products. They did understand the pricing, the benefits of the products, and there will be dependents for the customer. And now they are willing to go to the next domain. So here the handshake happens between the banking domain and they now land on the product domain. So here they will have to go through the illustrations of all the product. They will understand the product details. This is just the demo screens we have built to make you understand. This is where the customer will try to understand more about the product. Once they are good with understanding the product, they will go back to banking domain, and from here again the journey continues. So this is just a quick illustration about what would happen when the transactions are happening between the banking domain and the products domain where the products are actually residing. Cool. So with this problem statement we have, let's understand the challenges we have faced. Lovish and Anil were also talking about the third-party applications we would be integrating with, the dependencies we have. The product domain, there are two different teams who are developing the products itself. There is a product team, it's a company B, and we are a banking domain. We are developing all the customer and the relationship manager side of the application. And the product domain is developing all the product side of the application. So there is a dependency between each of us, right? So when they have to be ready from their side, we will also have to be ready, and we will be asking for the application to develop, application to be tested on a daily basis. We want to run our automation suite in an integrated environment. We just don't want to test bits and pieces. And there is an issue of like, how would we report a failure? We wouldn't know where will be a failure. Is it on the banking domain or is it on the product domain? Who will take an ownership of the failure? How would you fix it? Right. And we also want to, at the end of the day, when we want to go live, we want to do a joint UAT, so that we will give a final sign off on the application. So on the same test environment, we wanted to test independently, and we wanted to test with an integrated with actual product domain error. So this was our problem. We wanted to run our automation suite, and we wanted to independently file the bugs and show the evidence, right? So where and root down the problem itself. These are the challenges we had faced, and the solution we had was we had to mock it, right? So unless we mock, we will not be able to test it independently and run our automation suite. So hence we decided mocking the entire application behavior. So with that, let's get into a little bit of understanding around what mocking itself is. Okay, can anybody talk about what is mocking? Okay, we can take a minute to understand from the participant side. If you have used the mocking tools, what do you mean by mocking? How you have used it? Cool. Let me just continue. So we basically would like to imitate any behavior. We would call it as faking a behavior, where we would not have an actual application. We will be faking a behavior. In our case, we had to fake the behavior of the product application, right? So it's not just the backend behavior, even the UI behavior, assuming that you have
gone through the application, you have made a purchase of the application, and then come back to the banking domain. You have to imitate all that behavior so that it will look like the end-to-end connected journey of buying a product, right? So you will sometimes you will also want to mock a different success behavior, right? So you may not be able to find all the data which you are looking for in your DB or a different way of creating the data, or you might want to imitate the failure behavior, right? So it's difficult to imitate the failure behavior. Like for a specific failure, you might be expecting on a specific data failure, on a specific failure error code, whatever it is. It's difficult to mock. It's difficult to create the data for those specific responses, right? So we use mocking in that case. And obviously, we want to manage the dependent system behaviors. Like this example I am talking about, there will be for sure most of the applications we are working on, we are dependent on the different third-party systems, or within the project we are working on. In that project also, we will have a dependency on the sub services or the different APIs. So when those applications are not yet ready, or something has happened, the application has gone down, we will be dependent on the mocking. So, to continue with our application journey and remove that dependency, we will use the mocking. Cool. So most of us will have a confusion around what is mock and what is stub. Most of the times we use the word stub. Sometimes we use the word mock. Most of stub and mock are relative. Let's take a quick example around like what is the stub, what is the mock. So we basically substitute a temporary value when you want to stub anything. Let's say you want to stub a value. Right now, you might not have a value for an age. So you will pass a temporary value, and you have stubbed that value because one of the service which was supposed to give you actual age, which is not there. You have temporarily stubbed the value, and the response, you call it as a mocked response for the age. So that's the difference. So you can say like when you want to stub for a car, you can use a Swift car or any car, right? This is one example. But if you want to mock a behavior of a specific car, right? So then you might have to modify. Maybe your Swift, you want to behave like BMW, then you might have to bring in some features like maybe a dashboard or some of the engine features you are modifying to make it appear like BMW. You're marking your Swift as if it is behaving as BMW. And another example is your fake meat, we call, right? So a mock meat. You find a right texture, a right thickness, and the taste as well, but it's not a real meat. You have substituted some of the elements to mock the behavior of the meat. Anyone else would like to give any other examples to differentiate stub versus mock? Anyone?
Okay. I can go if there's no one.
Ravi, would you like to
Sure.
give an example?
I'll go it. So one in our project was like, let's take the example where we are working. Here it's like we are testing the device and there is a client that's running and we'll have to send certain informations to the cloud. So this cloud piece is owned by a different team and their scope will never match with our scope. So which means like the release will be same, but if you're doing it in N sprint, they'll be doing it in N+2. So our definition of done says that the story can be closed only when the automation of the story is completed if it's feasible. So we can't keep taking the story, spilling over to the 2 sprints, and it will actually affect our burn down chart and things like that, right? So in that case, this stub actually kind of played a major role. So there we completely black boxed our client, or which is the agent that's running on the device, and we were able to stop the entire cloud portal. So in that way, like whatever we wanted to achieve, we were able to do it. So one specific instance that we would like to call out is the config that we needed from the cloud side. It was not ready by the time when our code was there. So in that case, for manual testing, we can do we can place the file manually and we can do whatever we want. But for an automation, to have an insprint automation, this particular stubbing concept will help us a lot, and it helped us a lot because we need not rely on anyone, right? Like one of the point which Shiva mentioned, it actually ignores or relieves us from the dependent systems. So we can test our agent in a complete black box. So this is how the stub has helped us a lot. So this is one example that I can think of.
Thanks a lot.
Anyone else want to go?
Anyone else? Cool. Thanks a lot, Ravi, on that. Let's proceed further. Oh, okay, Abinandhan.
Yeah, I would like to give an actual example where we are using mock effectively. Assume we have doing the API testings, right? So definitely not all the APIs would be ready by the time you have your test cases and you want to start your test execution, right? So during the time, you need to verify for particular for the test you have written, right? You expect something like a status code or a response body, right? And that also can be used to see if whether on receipt of that particular status code or a response body, right? If your code is executed as expected. So mocking we can see effectively used as part of API testing as well.
Cool. Yep. Thanks, Abinandhan. Okay, let's move on. Let's understand some of the mocking tools that are available. Most of them, some of them you might be already using. So the tools I have listed here, most of them are open source tool. Very few are paid tools. But so at least there is a free version for many of them, like mockable.io. You can quickly open a web and you can begin it. They will give you one subdomain for free. You can directly mock one of your subdomain and start working on that. That's the quickest way of mocking on the web itself without having to have your standalone server, anything. You don't need to set up anything. So rest all is listed here are open source. And so Knock is one of the tool which is widely used in the framework, which is dependent on the JS framework. So they will use it for the UI integration tests, where you, again, as Abinandhan and Ravi mentioned, you wouldn't have your backend application ready yet, but you want to test your UI functional behavior and give a sign off. This tool comes handy. Like there is a simple node library. You just need to install that and add a mocks as per the configuration. That's a great handy tool. And there is another tool called Mockintosh. You can pretty much mock anything you want. Some of the other applications we were talking about, it is difficult to mock some of the async behaviors where you would have a Kafka, the queues you would have. It's difficult to mock there, but Mockintosh gives you the way to mock your async responses as well, and you can pretty much mimic your performance testing parameters. You can control your latency and the bandwidth, other things you can control and run your mocked behavior of the application. And there is another tool called mock server, which gives you in different ways. You can have a Docker container. You can just have a Maven. You can use it as a Maven plugin. Lot many ways you can just integrate with your backend application mainly. I have seen mostly people using it on the backend applications. And Montaback is another handy tool, which is one of the first open source mocking tool. And there is wire mock as well. People do use it for integration testing and doing a standalone mock. These you will have to run the mock servers individually. Let's quickly see an example of how a Montebank would work. All you need to do is just do an npm install of Montebank. One moment. Yeah, so you just do npm install of the Montebank and run the command mb, and you have your Montebank server running. And whatever the endpoint you want to mock, you just, let's say here, I am trying to mock this behavior. I don't see any response here. There is an easy way of, they call mocks as imposters. So what you need to do is like on what port you want to mock a behavior. So on this port, I want to mock a behavior for user endpoint. So I just create this, and this is up and running for me to use a mock behavior for user endpoint. This is as simple as that. Like you see, there is a response, success response created. Yeah, so Monteback comes handy when you want to mock a behavior standalone. So you just need to create an imposter. They're basically your mocks and start using it as an API. So later, I will also share this link. You can try using Montebank in your application as well. Cool. Now let's come back to the approach we have used to solve the problem we have discussed before. Because ours was a complex problem where we had to navigate between the application multiple times. What happens here again, let's look at a mock behavior, what we have done, and then I will take you back to explain you the tech implementation of how we used it. Cool. So instead of using the actual endpoint, all we had to do is like, let's say I'm using a mock behavior. What it will do is like, instead of taking me through the entire journey of the product domain, I will just capture only the necessary details which I need to pass from this domain to the banking domain. So it will look for some of the details where it will look, yeah, it will have a product ID. It will get the RM details and the password details. All you need to do is just pass the details which is required from this domain to the banking domain. So you just pass that details, and our application will capture the details and navigate you back to the banking domain again. And for the second time of the journey, we do the similar journey. How we have achieved it, I will quickly run you through. Cool. So we understood about the mocks which are created using the PACT, right? So in the previous session, we have our application created with contract testing. Only thing we had to do is leverage the benefit of the PACT mock server, where you could add additional mocks to test your functional behavior of the UI application. What we have done is like from the PACMock server, there are already existing mocks. To mock the specific behavior of your journey, you need to just go and add additional mock interaction like this. So you would go to an interaction section of your specific service and endpoint. So let's say this is an endpoint for the product. What you would be doing is like to mimic the behavior of the different payload type, you would just add additional interaction like this and change your payload type based on the contract that has been defined. So I have added additional response here, additional interaction here. So based on this specific payload type, and there will be a specific behavior that would be triggering and a different data which will get loaded. This is how we added an interaction for a different behavior we had to mock. So once we have added the interaction, we have to create a mock UI application. So what happens is like from our UI journey, let me take you back to the UI journey here. Okay, when I click on proceed here, this proceed button, this actually creates a payload, which I have just shown you here. It's creates this payload and makes a post call to a dependent system. And once our dependent system receives that payload, it will send a redirection URL saying, okay, I have acknowledged your payload. Now you will get on this endpoint. So only then it will take you on this specific screen once it has acknowledged and it has passed the redirection URL. So what we had to do is like, instead of landing on this screen, so in our response, we said, instead of going to the actual redirection URL of the product site, redirect to this test site we are building. So what would happen is like we would have mocked the endpoint. Instead of hitting the actual product endpoint, it will hit the mock endpoint. Our mock endpoint for a specific behavior, it will give a redirection URL saying like redirect to this URL, and it will redirect to the specific URL we were talking about. And when you redirect to this URL, here, this is our mock UI application. So we had to create this mock UI application. So for different behaviors we had to mock. So we created one JS instance, JavaScript node server we created, and all the mock behaviors were kept in that. And so once you have that, so you also you capture the details that is required and compile that information and send it back to the actual application. Now our main challenge was we also had to control a behavior to mock or no mock. We have a same environment that we could use between us. That means like we and product domain. Both of the systems had to use the same environment for the actual UAT testing. So when we were pointing to the mock system, they were saying like application is not working properly. When we were pointing to the actual endpoint, most of the times it was broken. To solve that problem, what we did is like we used the FF4J feature control mechanism, where we introduced an option to control the mocking behavior. How we could do is, yeah. So in the backend framework itself, we introduced the control called enabling the mock domain. If it is turned on, you would actually do a mock journey. If it is turned off, it's a no mock journey. And similarly, and we had a next problem. What the problem was when the system was being used, we were also developing in parallel, right? So we had to test the other behaviors of the application. There was a need that few people wanted to use the actual endpoint to test the current behavior which is supposed to go live, and the current development behavior few people wanted to test with the mock application. Right. So to control that behavior, what we did is we also introduced a toggle with the RM IDs. What we did is like in the FF4J, we also introduced a configuration where we said only these many users will be usable to use the mock, rest of use the actual application. This is how we did control the mocking behavior. When the control is turned on, it will do the actual mock, but it will also look for the specific user IDs. And next, how we did control the mocking behavior on the production. We could not go live to production with this mocking behavior. So there is a beautiful concept in Spring where you could do a profiling enablement only for a specific environment, where you pass the environment for this specific speech feature toggle and say like this profile, this is applicable only for a specific environment. So that means like whatever the toggle you have turned on, off, in production, it doesn't take any value. That's how we could control this mocking mechanism in the test environment and for specific users. Cool. Any questions? Okay, let's move on. All right, so let's quickly discuss about what are the pros and cons about this approach we have used. So Muthu has a question. Muthu, go on.
Yeah, Shivaling. So is it mocking has any limitation? Like, say for example, if I want to create a number of data, then how would it be? And if this has any limitation for creating mocking?
Yeah, so let's quickly discuss about pros and cons. Let's see if it answers your question. Otherwise, let's specifically discuss about that.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. So here, this gives you an opportunity to test your application behavior anytime you want, not just the backend behavior, even the UI behavior, which will help you connect end-to-end UI behavior. Lower maintenance, because we are already capturing the contracts for, even though this is not a consumer driven contract test, but still we are capturing the contract for the consumer side of testing purpose. So hence, whenever there is a change in the contract from the provider side, we still have to update our contract on our side, which is both benefit or the maintenance overhead as well. But we took it on the other side, on the benefit side, to keep the contract well updated all the time. And you could test any type of behavior. You are not limited to test anything specifically. And then you could test it any of the dependency independently, right? So you need not wait for any of the dependent application to be available and up and running. Some of the cons we see, we had to add an additional code in the service side of it to control the mock versus the real behavior. So there won't be a performance hit, but still there is a slight check, right? So every time it will check for that profiling. Go, okay, if this is test profile, then execute this. So there is this additional code we had to keep it in the production code, right? So which is usually not recommended, which is not being used in production. There's a saying like, if something is not being used in production, get rid of it. But here we had to use this slight additional code only for controlling this mocking behavior, right? So now it will come to a point that it will be a maintenance overhead, right? So we will have to add additional MFE, and you have to maintain the mock server because this is not a consumer driven contract testing, right? So we are testing a third party system. So for that, we are still maintaining the contract and we are still maintaining the mocks, and it becomes expensive when it comes to add different additional behavior, right? So today we'll be testing for product A, the contract might be different. I want to test for product B. As long if the list keeps on growing, it becomes a maintenance overhead. So it is doable. You can add as many interactions, as many mock behavior as possible, but it's maintenance overhead, right? So let's say tomorrow there is a slight change in a contract. You will have to go and update all your mock data you have added there. So that's a drawback. And with this approach, you cannot test the actual performance of an application. You will always have to be dependent on the actual application to test the end-to-end performance, what we call it as. Muthu, hope it answers your question as well.
Yeah, but not really. Actually, my question was like, say for example, we have a upstream, so we are getting all the data from the upstream. So for each and every hour, we need to get data like around 10K or 20K. So like that, is there any limitation? So as you mentioned, you can we can test any type of response behavior, but when it comes to getting data from a DB like big data, so I'm asking.
Yeah, so I get your question. So it is not recommended to use this approach when you have to test it against the huge data. There are different approaches that you could follow when you are trying to mock different behaviors when the huge data you will have to place. So what we have done is like for one of our application previously, we had created a mock data containers. So based on the application behavior, we had multiple mock containers. So let's say you want to test the behavior of an application when patient details are, I'm just giving an example, when the patient load is 10K. So what we would do is like we will hook a container which has the 10K data of the patients. So when you have to test it for 20K, just remove this container, hook the 20K data container. So based on the need, we had created multiple containers and just hook it whenever you want to test that specific data size. For different problems, we might have to go with the approach that suits the need there.
Yeah, got it, Shivaling. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions? All right. With that, so we pretty much covered what we had discussed before. We went through the business case. We did understand what mocking is. We did try to understand the difference between the mock and the sub. We did go through some of the mocking tools, the approach we had taken to solve our problem, and we did understand the pros and cons of this approach. With that, I close my presentation. Any questions we can discuss? Cool. I take it as no. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Shiva. This was a really awesome session. And yeah, really, as you said, right, mocking will be playing a vital role in the software development, and everyone, will be using in future and in software development. All right. So we will be shared the feedback form in the chat. So we are looking at feedback. So how the session was gone, and what needs to be improved from our side, and what's nearly the inputs which really makes us to giving a valuable tech stacks or knowledge sharing. So everything. So please provide your feedbacks in the Google form, right? Yeah. And you can also share one more thing. Yeah. So with that note, thank you everyone. Thanks for joining the session. And if anything you want to share or you want to interact with speakers, or if you want to provide any live feedback, yeah, please unmute yourself. And we would be really appreciate if we shared any feedbacks. Yeah, please stay. We'll be taking 2 minutes of that. If you unmute yourself and provide any, if you have it in mind, or share your feedbacks, that's really helpful for us. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. So happy weekend to everyone. And thanks once again who joined and who gained the knowledge. Hope you got a good knowledge. And yeah, thank you everyone. We'll see you back in soon. Please stay yeah, stay tuned our web page, or follow up our LinkedIn page, social media, and ThoughtWorks pages. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all, and thanks for organizers, and thank you speakers, and thanks all participants. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
You.